Hello and welcome back to Monday, the series where we venture onto 4chan and see what albums and atrocities creators have come up with on the 4chan music board this month. This is the second part of my first video, and I want to apologize for having this take so long. I just kept putting it off, and that's on me, so I will try to be more consistent with my schedule and my uploads, though I will say they will be less frequent due to now being in university. I'll still try and get about 3 out per month though. Hopefully. With that out of the way though, let's just get right into it. This album is the result of feeding an AI Jay-Z, Kanye, and Drake beats, and then a human being compiled them into listenable sequences. It's really interesting, but I just... why, dude? Almost sounds like a Slauson Malone beat tape, to be honest. Maybe I had this thought while listening because it's an AI-generated album, but all of the beats were solid, but none were emotionally moving, if I can say that. I guess it just shows no matter how good the food you feed your AI, it'll always just shit out a turd. That wasn't a very, artful metaphor, but neither was this project, so I think we're even. Look, I respect it, and I'll probably remember it for what it did, but not for the music that it made. So, 6? Here we have a bunch of singer-songwriter tracks doused in twang, all recorded on a 4-track over the course of a few weeks. Most of the tracks tell stories, usually about a man, strange man. One's called The Pissin' Cowboy. These actually boast some pretty solid songwriting and stuff that I wasn't too shaken by, because what I was shaken by was the electronic interludes and the really bizarre elements of this album that did not feel like they fit at all. There's really strange skits as well that, you know, like the stories are about drunken, stumbling men, but then we get these interludes and the tone is so different from those songs that are about these strange people. It's hard to put into words, but trust me, if you listen to this, you will understand very quickly. It does not fit together. My other hand is full. I just think if the album was more developed, with more focus in one area, instead of all of these scattered ideas amongst these good singer-songwriter cuts, I think you would have had a better project. So, 5 out of 10. Oh, blah, blah, blah. This is destructive, my guy. Despite the maelstrom that this track is, you can make out almost every instrument that's happening at any given moment, whether it's a wailing guitar or the crashing percussions. Now, it does get a tad repetitive in the middle. There's a reason that all of these metal subgenres usually have tracks running between 30 seconds and a minute. But if you want to feel some October horror, then make it through this track. Okay, wow. So when I started this thread, I was expecting, as I mentioned in the last video, a bunch of crap, essentially. And I got some decent stuff, but what I didn't expect was something that I think is so good that I might actually end up putting this on my year-end list. I'm not gonna beat around the bush here. This is some good shit. The track You Are Here, just colon. Easily one of my favorite tracks I've heard all year, combining the triumphant sounds that I love so much about, pardon my French, transcendental metal and Midwest emo, and it fuses it into this massive emotional dump. Now, the Math Rock EP that Mollywhollop has concocted for us here is Not really as math rocky as I expected it to be. Don't get me wrong, this is still math rock by definition, but the tones are very progressive metal meets emo. And while the composition here is complex enough, I wouldn't say that it's meticulous. You're not going to be scratching your head over how anything was done. It's pretty straightforward, but it'll keep your head nodding for all 12 minutes of this. The writing, my God, the riffs here are euphoric. And I would not use that word if I did not feel it was completely appropriate. Look, just this package is irrefutably tight. The execution is great. The mixing is solid. I like everything about this, and I can't really find many flaws with it. Sure, having actual performed drums instead of synthetic drums, I assume they're synthetic, they sound synthetic, would have been better. I desperately hope that you get funding for your future projects, because if this is what a solo effort from you sounds like, I cannot imagine what you would produce as someone with a huge budget behind them. 9 out of 10. Liminal Decay is not aggressively strange, but it's definitely not subtle about wanting to be abstract. Essentially, this album is a collection of warping, bubbling hip-hop tracks. Some of these tracks are really catchy too. Tracks like Stray Dog or Dragon Curve. I've come back to these multiple times, especially Stray Dog. That's one of the catchier hip-hop beats I've heard this year. And then there are tracks like Slow Start, which quickly morph into cacophonies, but stuck with me for reasons other than that. For one, I'm surprised it took anyone this long to do an IDM remix of the Reggie cries from Pokemon Lucario and the Mystery of Mew. And two, the violent tone does not fit with the bubbly aesthetic that the rest of the album rests on. Still worth checking out because the vast majority of the tracks here are really sweet and a great listen. So if you're looking for a good hip-hop beat tape, check this out. Gonna give this one a 7.5 out of 10. This individual posted in the thread claiming that they make the best EDM that you'll ever hear. No, you don't. Well, at least your album title acknowledges that your album is a bit of a scattered mess, but that's fine. I'd hesitate to even call this an album. It definitely feels more akin to a mixtape, and not just because genre shifts from song to song, but also because the production quality shifts from song to song. Some of these tracks are fleshed out with like rich guitars and like basses mixed in stereo properly. And then the next track has this flat as hell MIDI piano blaring on top of a 4/4 house beat. Look, skim through it if you're interested in looking for some house beats, I guess. I couldn't see much of a reason to return to it though. I'm gonna give this one a 5. No, just fuck you. Look, I understand that it's easy to call drone music lazy because it's like, oh, look at me, I hold down note C5 for 10 hours and turn the knob. But this sucks dick through a straw. There's nothing compelling in all 31 minutes of this track. I listened to it twice just to make sure I didn't miss anything on the first listen. You know what I got? I got an hour of my life that I'm never gonna get back. An hour and 4 minutes, actually. Don't ever send me music again. I'm so serious right now. 1 out of 10. Look, I'm predisposed to slowcore, so the half of the album that is influenced by slower, more melodic tunes, I love that, man. The tracks like Sunshine in the Pouring Rain or Déranger, I love that. The mixing is solid, and the writing is pretty solid too. There's some interesting things going on here. I especially like the little interlude near the end called Fluid Motion, in which they use a lot of delay and plucking to simulate fluid motion. But once again, an inconsistency in tone kind of lets the album down, like many of the other albums mentioned here. This album's not as big of a culprit as the others, though I do wish there was more of the sad boy slowcore. Can't have it all, right? It's all good. I'll give you guys a 6.5 out of 10 for now. This track automatically started playing when I opened the tab, and I didn't realize that was happening. And so the first time I heard it, there's just a bunch of breathing at the beginning of the track, and I almost pissed my pants. And so for those reasons, I'll give this a 6 out of 10. Last but not least, we have probably the most interesting out of everything here. I mean, when's the last time that you had a vocalist that sounds like they belong in a prog rock band playing in a folk band that also has a dedicated accordion player? Look, I know it's not like groundbreaking or anything, but this was a cool project. I like this. The album has a repeating pattern of a brief instrumental interlude and then 2 full-fledged songs with lyrics and other things that interludes don't include, like a 3-minute runtime. The songwriting on everything here is gorgeous. The mix is pristine. There's a lot of really heavy, rumbling basses. If you listen to these with any good pair of headphones, you're gonna be pretty impressed. There's some heavy tracks on here which I really appreciated, especially with the vocalist sounding more disposed to aggressive music, but I really ended up loving and staying for the more subdued waltzes and serenades, especially the final track, Nothing More. I really loved that one. I suppose my biggest gripe with the whole album, though, is that nothing particularly blew my mind. And I don't mean that in the sense that this was just not worth listening to at all, because it really is. There's just nothing groundbreaking happening here, which is totally fine. And for those reasons, I think we can still give this album an 8. I just think with some progression, the band can see something great come out of their work because you have the framework to make something experimental and out there. I just know it. Well, that's going to conclude part 2 of the first episode of Mew Mondays. I'll try to get the next episode out better and faster, and I'll try to do things differently. Just give me some feedback. Tell me what you guys want to see /hear/never have anything to do with. As always, thanks for watching, and have a good day.